Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to give everybody a couple more minutes before we start. We had quite a healthy list of attendees, so we just want to give everybody a chance to sign in and also to get all the AI note takers a chance to log in. I see we have a healthy dose of those as well. I'm Mark from the UK. Welcome. I see we've got Mayors Worldwide joining from Massachusetts. So a global audience today. Early morning from California. I'm connecting today from Johannesburg, South Africa, together with Claudia and Nikki.
Mm.
We'll give everyone 2 more minutes and then we'll start. I see we have Erica Levison's AI assistant. Not sure where it's dialing in from. Right, I think we can start. So welcome everybody. My name is JJ Milner. I'm the CEO of Global Micro Solutions Worldwide. I'm joined today by Nikki Marcus, who's sales lead for Africa, and Claudia, who's our business development lead international. And then we have a special guest today, Sergio, who is business group leader for Azure at Microsoft. Today the idea is to share with you the reasons why you should consider Azure Arc, how that is the on-ramp for you to take advantage of all the benefits that Microsoft Azure has to offer nonprofits, and how you can take advantage of the capabilities that will enable. And then we will also give you some information around some assistance that Microsoft is making available to help make it easier for nonprofits to take advantage of the technology. I'll be assisted by Nikki and Claudia in the chat. So if you've got questions midstream, please feel free to write the questions in the chat. I will have time for Q&A at the end as well. We have booked 90 minutes. Generally, these sessions are about an hour, and the last 30 minutes are there if any of you, have questions and want to dive in deep. We'll stay on as long as you've got questions, or we're happy to take the questions offline and follow up with you after the event. The deck will be available in two formats. It's a pretty big deck, nearly 700 megs, and that's because it includes video and content that we won't be showing in today's session, but we specifically have a very rich deck so that when you download the deck afterwards, you have all the material that you need to share with your colleagues. If you want to see video demonstrations and run them at your own pace, they're available. We'll also be including a much smaller PDF deck for those of you, who don't want to have such a large download. So all of this will be available to you. The meeting and session is recorded. So from a privacy perspective, anyone who's not comfortable with that, please, fortunately, you'll need to drop off. But feel free to reach out to anyone of us, and we'll happily do a one-on-one call with you if there are reasons why transcription and recording isn't permissible under your guidelines. Alex, I see a question around the deck links. Yes, you will be emailed the links to download the content. All right, Claudia's also going to be running a number of polls throughout the presentation. So she's put her hand up, so that's when we know. So Claudia, what's your first poll?
Good afternoon, good morning. The first poll, in line with the introductions today, is just to let us know a little bit about your role and where you fit in your organization. So I'll kick it off now. Thank you.
Great. So I'd like to hand over now to Sergio. Sergio, if you want to come off mute and
Yep.
Just let me know as I need to advance your slides.
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Coming through loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching. Thank you very much for joining us. I want to start introducing myself. My name is Sergio Victorio. I work in Microsoft as the Azure industry lead for nonprofits. I'm based in Redmond, and I'm joining this wonderful team to talk about how does Azure, in particular Arc, can help the nonprofit organizations. We are seeing several companies around the world that are being using our technology, of course, cloud technologies, but very specific on Arc. Now, I wanted to start with a quote from Satya, of course, around Microsoft, that the roots of this company, it's basically a platform and partner-led organization. And we will continue to bring this sensibility. So basically, whatever we do in Microsoft is going to do to build a better platform, a secure platform, a collaborative platform, interoperable platform as well, and of course, working with partners to help our customers to achieve more, and that's the vision that we have. So just going to keep you to start with this, to keep everybody on the same page, that we're trying to build platforms to our customers that will satisfy their needs and overcome their challenges. Next slide, JJ, please. What we are seeing for the nonprofit organizations on Azure, it's in different pillars. How does Azure, help a nonprofit organization in different pillars? For example, the number one pillar that we are seeing is security and modernization, and of course, there's nothing that is going to help any organization around the world being 100% secure, but we want to keep each organization improving in the security space. The way that what we can do is reduce the security risk that each organization has, improve the communication, have a process in place for any security breach if that happens, and a procedure, and of course any remediation plan that they may need. So we are seeing more than 35% growth on security services across nonprofits from in 1 year, and this is been very good. That we are seeing this, of course, and we're seeing more and more momentum here, not only to secure the infrastructure but also securing the data, which is of course very important. The other pillar that we see is organization productivity, and with AI, how the organizations can benefit from AI solutions. And I'm talking about Azure, so this is beyond Copilot and the usage of Copilot, is how they can implement, for example, a solution based on Azure OpenAI, built on the AI Foundry, or using AI search services or translation services to help them be more productive internally and externally. And we have several organizations that embrace this and are reducing the internal cost from each of their employees and helping them achieve more, actually. The center pillar is stretch budgets. Of course, this is one of the biggest challenges that nonprofit has across the globe from different, for several years, but probably this particular year or this particular time is been more predominant than others, and we are seeing that customers are looking to not only reduce their spend but also controlling more the cost and the way they invest. And we are seeing that more and more they are trusting us with a platform on this matter. And we are seeing the Arc is also part of this, and I will talk about that in a little bit. Fundraising, almost every non-profit organization has to have a fundraising strategy. So how do we improve and increase the fundraisings funds and the fundraising engagement with donors every year? It's very critical, and in this case we have the data that help us there, and the data services also are very important for us in this space. And finally, the internal organizational values of each nonprofit, employee satisfaction, for example, employee retention, and growing the way they engage with each of their volunteers, for example. This is very critical. A lot of nonprofits, of course, has some employees, but majority also has several volunteers. This is one of the pillars where if you don't get their the most of their time, it's going to be very difficult to keep them coming to help the nonprofit. So the way that each nonprofit organization engage with the volunteers and their employees is critical as well. So in these are the pillars that we are seeing in the last 12 months, sorry, and we are very, very excited that a lot of our nonprofits across the world are embracing Azure to help them overcome these challenges. Next slide, JJ. And the last one, how specifically we are focusing on some of the pillars. In the first one, sorry, the first pillar that we discussed. Well, we have different solutions that helps them on the cloud migrations to improve the security and reduce the cost or manage the cost of these implementations. And we have several products. But the one that we are going to discuss today is on Arc, Azure Arc, and it's basically helping customers manage their environments, their hybrid environments, or multi-cloud environments. It's not only Azure, it's a service that can help customers manage their VMs in other clouds, in other providers, or on-prem, and of course on Microsoft Azure. And the service per se, it's a free service in the baseline, and then you will have some management capabilities for free there. And if you want to have more advanced capabilities, of course, you may be also able to get those. But the point is that Arc is the center of any cloud migration. From our point of view, it will get you on the best position to start building the migration, seeing what do you need to migrate your servers, for example, your infrastructure to the cloud, to Azure, Microsoft Cloud. But if you don't have Microsoft Cloud or you have multi-clouds, you can still manage those other cloud providers through Arc, which is one single pane of glass, and you will see that more in a bit in this webinar. With that, sorry, and then we have some, of course, nonprofit that are already been using this technology, and there are different case studies that you see in the bottom, but they are already embracing these Azure benefits within their organizations. With that, I will pass the baton to JJ, and I hope that you enjoy this webinar.
Hey, Claudia.
Great. Thank you so much, Sergio. So having had the introduction to Azure Arc, I'd like to ask a question, a poll to the audience. How familiar are you with Azure Arc and its capabilities? Thank you.
Good question.
I answered that I'm very familiar with it, Claudia. I'm actively working with it.
Oh, I hope you are, JJ.
All right, so that's interesting. That seems that pretty much everybody's either heard of it or familiar with it. Very few of you guys are actively using it and very familiar. So that's, I suppose, what today is about. The slide I've got up on here is really just to position Arc as a control plane, as a way to have a single pane of glass to manage your SQL workloads, your virtual machines, Kubernetes, servers in your own data center, in another cloud besides Microsoft, services at the edge. And then you layer on top of that a number of different services on top of that. So you might have Copilot, you might have Microsoft Defender for Cloud, monitoring, policy, update management. I'm going to come into talk about this in more detail later, but just to position what Arc is and the way Microsoft sees it. So a little bit about Global Micro. I founded Global Micro when I was 17. I'm 51 now. And we're very passionate about the nonprofit community. You're wonderful customers to have. It's very seldom that IT people are appreciated. When's the last time you hugged your IT administrator? But somehow that paradigm is a bit different in the nonprofit community. It gives us a strong sense of purpose. You guys do amazing work, I'm not just saying it. You really are the favorite type of customer for us to work on. We work with many customers around the world, and our goal here is to be the global leader in Microsoft Tech for Social Impact. And this session, together with the other sessions that we're running, are the initial outreach on a global basis for us to do that for you. We have offices in 7 countries. Next week, I'm actually off to Saudi Arabia to open the office in Riyadh. The reason I mention that is a number of the nonprofits that we work with have expressed an interest to have a partner who can provide them with services in multiple geographies, in multiple legal jurisdictions, multiple languages, and provide effectively a service provider who understands the needs of those different locations. We have been Microsoft Partner of the Year on 3 separate occasions for hosting. This is before cloud. We have 9 Microsoft competencies. We've done over 50,000 migrations, over 4,500 customer deployments. But perhaps the one that I'm most proud of is the fact that our customers have an average Microsoft Secure score of 75% and above. We are a security and compliance business. That's the heart of what we do. And our goal there is to make sure that we secure our customers, secure the nonprofit organizations. That allows you to have donors who feel secure in the donations that they give and the personal data of the beneficiaries that you look after. And that 75% is twice the average of 44% in a typical Microsoft customer. Now, we do have commercial customers as well, obviously being a Microsoft provider for the past 35 years. But for non-profit customers, we have a permanent commitment to provide a 50% discount on all professional services. So this is over and above any of the assistance that Microsoft provides you. And the idea here is to make the activation of the power of the Microsoft technology, the power of M365, the power of Azure, available to you and make it affordable to nonprofit organizations. And we do this in three ways, really. The first is we need to secure your digital estates. Right, donor information, data, operational systems. These need enterprise security. The fact that you're a nonprofit actually means that you're in some ways at greater risk than commercial customers. We've seen in the latest Microsoft security reports, the nonprofits were the second highest targets of cybercrime, second only to the banks. That means that, unfortunately, the nefarious cyber gangs around the world target nonprofits, and they're doing so successfully because, unfortunately, in many cases, nonprofits have underinvested in security, and so they often make easy targets. The second aspect of what we do is to help you comply with regulations wherever you are in the world. So that could be GDPR in Europe, or NIS2, or DORA. In the US, it could be the California Privacy Act, or HIPAA, or you may follow industry standards like NIST 800, or you might follow the CIS compliance standards, the Center for Internet Security Compliance Standards. And we do that transparently, and as a result of it, in many cases, we land up being the managed service provider as well in our customers, or we play well with others as well. So in many cases, there are partners who are handling your ERP or your CRM systems, or your field service operations, and their speciality is not security and compliance, or automation or integration. Then we work well with them as well. Many nonprofits have large numbers of volunteers. They don't often have, well, in many cases, they don't have permanent IT staff. And so we can act as an extension of those volunteers, or where there are more established IT teams, of course, we can work with them as well. And then the last area, and this is particularly important in the world of AI, is we focus on accelerating the impact that your organizations can have once you've adopted the technology. And so we have the ability to help integrate data from over 200 third-party systems, ERP systems, donor management platforms, databases, CRM systems, and we can hook those into the Copilot and AI. A couple of weeks back, we had a webinar where we demonstrated that capability, and we will share links to the recordings of that webinar, and we will have a follow-up on there as well. But just to understand that from a philosophical perspective, the ultimate goal is to increase your impact. And so the outcomes of that is that you will have enterprise-grade security no matter the size of your nonprofit. You will comply with the data protection and governance standards that your donors and stakeholders expect. And we will empower you with tailored digital solutions that drive the impact that your organizations can make. I'm not going to take you through the next 3 slides. These are some more detail from our service catalog of how we can actually deliver those services for you. But the one I just wanted to draw attention to on the compliance side is that several nonprofits have worked with us to achieve ISO 27001 compliance, and we can help you do that in as little as 29 days. So if you're interested in that, reach out to the team and we can help you with ISO certification. Going to pause there for a second and just see if there are any questions in the chat that I need to answer. A question from Denise, wondering if the discount is available to not-for-profit as well as non-profit. Yes, it is. Nikki, I see you answered the question as well. All right. So Microsoft, Nikki, go ahead.
Sorry, Jay.
Nikki, you're very soft.
There is a question in the Q&A, if you'd like to read that.
Yeah,
from Philip. Does Microsoft have any advanced tools or guidance for nonprofits or public charities to implement zero trust architecture and SDLCs and harden their networks and environments against cyber attacks and terrorism?
Absolutely, we can assist you with guidance on that. Zero trust is obviously a fairly large discussion, but the center point of that is Microsoft's conditional access, and that can be deployed by our teams. We'll share some information around how we do that with Intune and M365, and we've got a very solid framework. Actually, that was part of the last webinar that we did, and we'll share the links to that. But there is very good guidance on it, and it could be done in under 90 days. Any more questions before I carry on? Right. So Microsoft has something called Microsoft Commercial Incentives. And the idea behind this is that when you work with a partner such as Global Micro, there will be deployment fees to enable some of the technology. As I mentioned before, we already discount that 50%, but even then, sometimes budgets are stretched. And so Microsoft makes funding available to drive the adoption of new technologies in nonprofits and commercial customers. And they have one incentive underway at the moment where if, as a result of this discussion today, or if it's a project you've already been thinking about, you have a single SQL database or more and 5 virtual machines or more that you want to evaluate moving to Azure and expect to do that within a year, then Microsoft will make funding available, and in all likelihood, we could fund 100% of the setup and migration fees to get those workloads across. And so the idea behind it is, Microsoft makes it easy for you to adopt the technology. We enroll into the MCI program. There are different engagements. There's an eligibility check where we basically go through your requirements. It takes us about an hour, and we make sure that you qualify for the particular MCI incentive, and then we can kick off the process and get it done in a very short space of time. The MCI engagements are run June to June for Microsoft's financial year. And so there is only about a 2-month window for us to take advantage of this current opportunity. So Claudia, I think you had a poll on that.
Yes, JJ. So I'm going to send a poll out now to our attendees just around the MCI initiative. And if you are interested in being nominated for that opportunity for funding. So I'll send it out now. Thank you.
Perfect. I think that there's about 25 slots available. between now and the 30th of June. So it's a great opportunity if you do have a project and you'd like to be nominated for it. You could potentially get 100% of the migration fees funded, and our team will do the work for you. I think the poll is anonymous. So if you could just drop the team a note in the chat with your details, or mail us afterwards if you prefer not to have that in the chat, and we will assist you with the nominations. Okay. Included in the deck are just some examples as well of other nonprofits that we've assisted with various Azure solutions. I'll leave these for you when you do the downloads. But for now, I wanted to take you through how we approach an Azure Arc migration, what the options are available to your nonprofit for deploying Arc, and how the process would work. With all our solutions, we break it into 3 easy steps. And the idea here is to meet you where you are in your cloud migration journey. And the start of that journey is what we call Arc Reach. The idea here is we deploy an Azure Arc agent to your on-premise or multi-cloud infrastructure. That can be deployed manually or via group policy. And it's very lightweight. And that capability would allow you to do a couple of things. The first is it would give you a single pane of glass from Azure to manage your non-Azure infrastructure. The second is that it would allow you to license Windows SQL technology on a subscription basis, as a pay-as-you-go basis, if you don't have alternative licensing for that. For example, maybe you want Windows Server 2022, or you have a version of SQL, say SQL 2012, that no longer has support. You can get extended support updates if you're not ready yet to move to the latest versions of SQL. And then importantly, it allows us to do migration assessments because we now have the ability to inventory your infrastructure. We can do a migration assessment, which would size your servers, look at your SQL workloads, understand whether or not your infrastructure is suitable for. One option is lift and shift, so as is, just move it from on-prem to the cloud. Or an alternative and often recommended way is maybe there's a re-architecture process where we modernize your applications. Maybe we separate your database and web front ends into platform as a service and managed instances. There are various approaches that we can take. And when we do the assessment, it's not just a technical assessment. We'll look at the return on investment. We'll look at the financial planning associated with it, and basically help you plan, firstly, to understand whether or not migration of those resources is a good idea financially and technically. And secondly, how we would manage that, how we would adopt it. And you might leave that in place for a year, might leave that in place for 2 years, entirely up to you. Some workloads may stay on premise on a permanent basis. There may be reasons for that. And other workloads may move to Azure. And then you could potentially have a hybrid situation for some time or permanently. We have many customers, particularly who've got, for example, point of sale services, right, where they need services permanently running at remote locations because of connectivity issues or infrastructure reliability. And then they've got other services, potentially if they want to enable Microsoft Fabric or reporting, where those services sit in Azure. So in many cases where you will have a hybrid approach, and certainly until you've completed your migration. Now, given that some of your workloads are going to stay on site, either permanently or until you migrate, the next option is what we call Arc Foundation. And this is where we deploy additional tools and additional technology through the agent that's been was deployed in Plan 1. So Plan 1 is essentially, from a licensing perspective, is free from Microsoft. But when you move to Arc Foundation, now you're going to be deploying your choice of Microsoft Azure Policy, Defender for Cloud, Azure Updates, Azure Monitoring, and there's some other technologies as well. And you can pick and choose. So, for example, if you use a third-party antivirus and you don't want to use Defender for Cloud, that's entirely okay. You could still use Azure Policy to comply with CIS or ISO 27001 and have the reporting. You could still use Azure Monitor to do monitoring and logging. Maybe you have an audit requirement to keep event logs for a year for compliance. We can use Azure Monitor to do that. And so we call that Arc Foundation. We actually have a sister plan for that. Any workloads that have been moved to Azure, we have Azure Foundation, where exactly the same technology would be deployed. It just wouldn't use the Arc agent, and we would do it natively on Azure. So it's one pane of glass. It's also one management paradigm and one experience for your users, for your IT staff, and eventually gets to the point where, and I find this quite useful, your teams can gradually become more comfortable with a cloud-first way of managing the infrastructure. They can get more comfortable with DevOps. They can get more comfortable with infrastructure as code, and without having to migrate their workloads in order to build up that experience and that comfort. We find many migration projects fail simply because of fear, because the teams know how to do, manage IT on premise, and they haven't necessarily been certified on Azure and some of the more modern disciplines. So Arc actually creates a very nice bridge for them to build confidence, have it built the right way. So part of what we do in Reach and Foundation is we deploy a best practice Azure landing zone. So we're deploying technologies like Key Vault for securely managing credentials. We deploy log analytics. We deploy the security and the access control, and we handle all the change management as well throughout this. And we manage this for you for a year after we've deployed it. Longer if you want, if you want us to. But when we deploy Arc, we also support it for you for the year. So particularly if you've used that MCI funding, that setup fee includes us managing and working with your team for a full year. Obviously, if you move to Arc Foundation and we're assisting with security operations center, then we might work with you on a more permanent basis. And then Plan 3 will apply to some of your servers. If you're running SQL workloads, our team will actually help you deploy management and governance specifically for SQL using the Arc agents. We'll even do things like disaster recovery documentation for you and planning for SQL recovery. That actually complies with ISO 22301 business continuity. We're certified for 22301, 27001, and actually for ISO 20000, which is for service management. I see a question there from Paul. We do enable Sentinel as well if you want to make use of Sentinel and Defender XDR as part of Arc Foundation, so Plan 2 and Plan 3 onwards. I'm going to pause there for a second and just see if there are any questions from the chat. Okay. So the goal here is to really simplify the challenge of complying with the right regulations and having a secure infrastructure, and move straight into having a simplified monitoring and maintenance experience. You get it all as a single, well thought out, well structured approach. We do this through DevOps. So last year, our teams wrote over 200,000 lines of PowerShell. And what that means is we have a highly automated process for deploying these technologies out to our customers. This allows a couple of things. One, anything we learn, any advancement from Microsoft that we deploy for one customer, we can deploy to other customers in a safe and managed way. The second is we can do this at a dramatically reduced cost because we don't have to spend as much time manually deploying the technology. And that allows us to make these tools available to you at a dramatically reduced professional services cost. And that the DevOps approach, by implication, means that we will comply with the governance standards where we have change tracking and we have baselining and the kind of things that are often difficult to do for CIS, NIS2, or ISO standards. Once all of this is done, your nonprofit will be very well positioned to adopt AI responsibly. If you're going to use tools like Copilot or OpenAI or any of the machine learning platforms that sit on Azure, it's absolutely critical that you have a landing zone that's been set up with role-based access and compliance in mind with monitoring and security, and that's been deployed on a DevOps basis. This also includes things like having cost control in place so that you can stick within your budgets and you don't have any surprises. There's so much potential for nonprofits to adopt AI. And unfortunately, what happens is the management teams get excited about AI. A week before last, we were at the Microsoft Nonprofit Leaders Summit, and just the amount of enthusiasm for AI, was palpable. But now IT teams have to respond really quickly to the demands from the rest of the organization to adopt AI in a responsible way. And so you're having to learn AI and learn compliance and learn Azure landing zones and make sure the bulls don't run away. So this ability to adopt it in a controlled way, it forms part and parcel of the thinking around how we deploy this. Now, once you've deployed Plan 1, 2, and 3, you can see the next step there is this ISO 27001. We automatically deploy the 34 technical controls that are associated with ISO 27001. By the way, ISO 27001 is the basis upon which GDPR was written. There's no GDPR specific certification you can get, but GDPR does require you to take appropriate cybersecurity steps to protect private information, and this includes donor and stakeholder information. And so if you are ISO 27001 certified, you shift the burden of proof from your nonprofit to the insurance company or whoever alleges that you haven't taken appropriate steps. And at some point you will have an incident. It's the nature of things, either a cyber incident or a data leakage incident or a suspected incident where you're not sure and you have to potentially report it to the regulator, depending on the size of your organization. And so being ISO 27001 certified allows you to literally put your hand on your heart, show the certificate and say, we're good cybersecurity, we're good governance citizens, we've taken the necessary steps. But the 34 technical controls are only part of what's needed to become certified for ISO 27001 or a privacy certification from ISO. You also need to deal with the organizational controls, the physical controls, and the people controls. So examples of those, for example, might be how often do you do background checks on members of staff or volunteers? Is it only when they're hired? Is it every year? Is it based on their seniority? Or it might be, do you have physical access control or cameras at your premises? Do you shred documents? So our team can help you write those policies if you have an intention to be audited. It takes about 29 days of work to write the policies and work through them. We generally recommend 6 to 8 months so that we can spend at most a day a week with you. And then you go nice and slow, and we don't rush through the policies, and you make them part of your organizational, of the way you run your organization, rather than just have these policies sitting in a drawer. To have the best impact, we should rather go slowly. But we have had situations where nonprofits have come to us and said, well, we've got a great donor. They're coming from a US bank, or they're coming from a UAE family office, and they have a requirement that they only provide donations of a certain size to organizations that have been audited. And then we can do it very quickly. The fastest we've ever done it is 10 days. So we can do it quickly, but my recommendation is to rather take a slower approach and make it part, let osmosis work within the organization. And then it doesn't become just a box ticking exercise. Once all the controls are written, we work with an international ISO auditor called Control Case. There are 115 questions in their audits. We know what those questions are. We pre-prepared all the evidence. In fact, we gather that evidence on an automatic basis. And you have what's called as a stage 1 audit, where they come in and they make sure that you at least have the basics in place, and that there's a good chance when they come in and do the stage 2 audit 3 months later, that you're likely to pass. So the stage 1 audit is a 1-day exercise, and the stage 2 audit is a 4-day exercise. We've never had a customer of ours fail their audit. So basically within 12 months, soon if we need to, you could have ISO certifications in place. Many nonprofits we work with stop at plan 2 or plan 3 and just deal with the technical controls, but don't necessarily go all the way to audit. Others write the policies, but don't necessarily go for the audit. So they like the idea of improving their governance and their awareness in the organization. So we'll help you navigate that and adopt that technology and those governance procedures at a pace that you're comfortable with. The main thing I'm trying to just convey to everybody is that this is not just a technology solution. You're choosing to partner with Microsoft Azure because of the maturity of their strong reputation in security and governance. You can do this in multiple geographies on Azure, and we'll help you deploy the technology, help with the change management, help with the adoption of best practices, and we'll keep this up to date for you on an ongoing basis. And if you qualify for MCI, we can probably take you on the start of that journey at no cost. Now, I do have in the deck a lot more detail on each of these phases, how we would approach a migration, how we would do the assessments, what's included in each of the foundations. And you're going to see there's links to demos. I mentioned that the deck is 700 megs. We have video demonstrations of each of these capabilities embedded in the deck. So feel free once you do the download. As I said, there'll be a PDF, which is much smaller. But if you download the full 700 megs, which we'll share after the event in PowerPoint, you'll be able to actually watch videos on all of these features and how it all fits together. I'll pause there and see if we've got any more questions. Claudia?
Yes, JJ. So I have a question for the audience in terms of digital transformation for your nonprofits and what you consider to be the most important factor to successful digital transformation. So I'll post the question now. If you could please share your thoughts. It is a free text, so you can share voluntarily. Thank you.
Nikki, I saw your hand up. Were there questions you wanted me to answer?
Yes, there was a question in the chat which I'll read to you. Has Azure Arc considered how reorganization will impact streamlining a role-based access control for Fidelity-funded organizations, begin integrating incumbent workforce with modern infrastructure protection mechanisms that GDPR has yet to comprehensively implement?
Yeah, absolutely. There are several ways of doing it. At its simplest level, we can make use of administrative units inside Microsoft Entra. But once we get into the Azure resources, then it's very important that we architect the landing zones with role-based access, and we then implement access control at subscription level or at resource level or at tag level. And so if you do have multi-stakeholder requirements, if you have a need to run internal firewalls between various stakeholders, if you need privileged identity management and approval processes. There are very well understood disciplines for it. And that will be part of some of the CIS, the Center for Internet Security benchmarks that we've rolled out for credit unions who are already subject to the type of governance that you mentioned.
I have another question. Is the service available only for migrating existing systems, or can you also assist with ground up type work, such as setting up and running systems for a NPO who currently does not have any infrastructure or systems in place?
Yeah, so Arc is designed to act as a bridge between the infrastructure you have outside of Azure to Azure. Of course, if you have new workloads that you want to spin up in Azure, we use the same approach. We'll deploy the landing zones for you, and then we can set up the net new infrastructure directly in Azure for you. There are also MCI engagements. I don't have the specific ones offhand here, but there's a very good chance that we can get some funding for you. For example, if you're looking at Fabric, or you're looking at analytics, or some of the AI workloads, there's funding available from Microsoft. And of course, our teams will, as we do with any professional services work, not just migration work, you've been entitled to the 50% discount from us. Nikki, just a note on the previous question, if we can just take the attendees' details so I can follow up with detail on how we do that segmentation.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Right. It's interesting to see everybody's feedback there. No surprise that reducing cost is one of the outcomes that a nonprofit is always, we see this consistently from nonprofits. And it's worth pointing out here that a move from on-prem systems to Azure, if you do a straight lift and shift, can more often than not actually cost more. And so when we provide a proposal to do the migration, we generally recommend modernizing the applications. If you can move, for example, from a SQL server running on a virtual machine to a SQL database that's a platform as a service, can dramatically lower the administration costs, the security costs, and the technical burden. So there's an operational cost as well. But we often don't know that at the beginning of the assessment. So when we quote on migration, and we'll be part of the project, again, probably funded by Microsoft, we generally scope a number of hours, and those hours can be used to do a lift and shift, or our DevOps team can actually help you modernize the applications so that, among other outcomes, you can reduce costs. Right. Any other questions? Cool. Right, so we have offices in South Africa, United Kingdom, UAE, Ireland, and the US, and Mauritius. And our next session, I will be sharing details of our Saudi Arabia office. Please reach out to us if you'd like to continue the conversation. If you've got any technical questions, we can certainly take those offline for you. And if any of you want to stick around and come off mic, I'll be available for the next 30 minutes if you want to dive into specifics or get into the technical weeds. But it's been fantastic. I appreciate you guys joining us today. And we look forward to you joining us on the next one. Claudia, did you say you didn't enjoy the webinar?
No, JJ, it wasn't me. Thank you so much, everybody.
We do appreciate the feedback, and for those of you that there wasn't necessarily the value you were looking for, please drop us a note with what you'd like to see in upcoming webinars. There were different audiences on today's call, and knowing what material you're looking for would certainly help us craft the next one. So really do appreciate the feedback.
Thank you. Thanks, JJ. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, there's a question from William Jackman as to when we'll send the PowerPoint. I'm assuming either today or tomorrow.
Yes, sir. It will be tomorrow.
Okay, I like that idea of a non-profit cohort conducting an evidence-based approach to research Azure Arc. I'm part of a number of groups that work on the CIS standard. There isn't a specific one for non-profits and how they could adopt it. So I'd be interested to hear your ideas and see how I can support you on that. Okay, well, thanks everybody. I'm going to end the event now, and we will share the recording and the decks tomorrow.
Thanks, JJ.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, JJ.